Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show here on Park City Television. I'm joined right now by a guest of the station and a great friend of the station. It's Bill Humbert, recruiter guy. And typically in the past, we've talked a lot about tips for onboarding processes for employers as well as people who are looking to get a new job and interview tips and stuff like that as well. Today, we're kind of switching things up and talking about the inverse of all of that, tips for interviewers. So if you've never interviewed anyone before, it can be quite a crazy process and very weird if you've never done it. So Bill, you're here to give us tips about that whole process. And if someone has never interviewed before and has no training whatsoever, it's kind of a defeated purpose to go into this interview, right? I mean, you're trying to pull the best out of someone, or the worst, I guess you could say.
Right.
You're trying to learn more about this person. If you don't have the tips and skills to be able to pull that out of someone, it's kind of a defeated purpose. You're not really getting anywhere.
Well, you know, I've been a recruiter since 1981. And what I've found since 1981 is that probably fewer than 25% of the managers have been taught how to effectively interview candidates.
Properly interview candidates. There's a difference between interviewing and properly interviewing someone.
That's right. And then also legally.
Yeah, and legally too, yeah.
Well, you can get in trouble. And I like to coach companies that if their managers haven't been taught how to interview effectively, they certainly haven't been taught how to select the proper and the best candidate.
And so in your eyes and through your experience, without this proper training, without this proper instruction, these companies are probably passing up so many great candidates for these positions that they're trying to fill, and possibly filling them with people who are not prepared for that position or not the fully suited person for that job.
Yeah, and I don't want this to sound arrogant, but I get to know the jobs pretty well that I'm recruiting for, and there have been, you know, literally hundreds of times when I've said to a manager, I know you want to extend this person an offer, but I just don't think this is the right best. Yeah, I think this person over here might be a better fit, and here's the reason why, and I tell them why. It's interesting for me that companies don't put more effort into that.
All right, so let's dive right into it. Let's talk about if you are someone who's never interviewed before, but for some reason that gets placed upon you, what do you do? Do you reach out to upper management and look for some guidance in this, or what are the steps that you think someone should take?
I would suggest that they go out and talk to a manager that has hired a bunch of people, but look at their organization. If the people they hire are top performers, those are the people you want to talk to. If the people they hire are people that you're going, why did this person get allowed into the company? Then that's not the right person to go to.
That's not the right person to go to.
Right.
Yeah. So some of these tips that you talk about, one of those is called behavioral interview questions. Can you explain that concept a little bit?
Sure. The premise behind behavioral interviewing is we humans are just wonderfully predictive. And once we find a way to do something in a certain situation, we will do it that exact way every single time.
Wow.
Until somebody gets a 2 before and goes, whack! You can't do that anymore.
It gets you out of that mindset, right?
Gets you out of that mindset. So what you try to do is you try to anticipate a situation that person's going to face, create a question where you're asking them. So Diego, have you ever found yourself in a situation where one of the people that you were interviewing you weren't able to pull the information out? How did you handle that situation? So that's a behavioral interviewing
and
situation.
See their response to that question, and that'll kind of show you how they think about these issues and how they solve them logically or illogically, right? And that'll give you your answer whether or not that is the person you're looking for. There's so many different questions and ways that they can be asked. Can you just give us a few more examples of those kind of behavioral style questions?
Sure. Well, they're not all behavioral. Some of them are direct. There's the one-step question.
Okay.
And the one-step question is just a pretty direct question. Have you found yourself in a situation where you were doing an internal audit in your group and there was an accounting problem? Discuss with me the process that you took when you discovered the accounting problem as the internal auditor.
Okay.
And then there's a 2-stage question, and I've used this one in construction. have you ever found yourself in a situation where something beyond your control, some force beyond your control, put you behind schedule? Second stage. What did you do
to get out of that?
To finish the job on time?
Okay. And then this one I really like this tip a lot, and this is something that I've heard a lot in interviewing in general, is silence. Silence is golden, and it really truly is. If you're not getting something out that you like, be silent and don't break that silence. Wait for them to break the silence.
Okay, that's yes. So I actually had a candidate one time, a sales candidate back early 90s, and it was the first time I'd heard that technique. And so I went like this. He finished answering behavioral question, and I went,
continue. Yeah.
and humans don't like silence. And so he started talking again.
They'll fill it, yeah.
And he got finished with that, and I went, now my mindset is, I wonder how many times he's going to just answer. And so he ended up going into the confessional. Bless me, Father Christ. And it has been many, many years since my last confession. He started telling me things he way shouldn't have been telling me. And then finally he said, I blew this interview after 20 minutes on that one question.
Wow. And that's what silence can do.
It can kill you. So there are ways to break it, but the best way to break it, don't use this on me if I interview you. The best way is there any more information that I can give you on this topic?
Okay.
Get the interviewer talking.
Get the interviewer talking. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about what these kind of tips and stuff, how can this really change your onboarding process? By adopting these tips, adopting these styles of interviewing and really taking interviewing into consideration and making it something a priority, how does that change the organization? Obviously, it's a huge benefit, correct?
It should be. There's a book called Top Grading by Dr. Brad Smart, and it's the best book I've ever read on selecting, mentoring, and retaining A players. And A players he defines as the top 10%. And the A players always recruit A players. And the occasional B player that maybe they see promise that maybe I can elevate them to an A. Those are the people who are going to bring in the best qualified new employees. And when they get to onboarding, now you've got a group of superstars in the making to really propel your company forward. So it can be really exciting.
So it can be a great thing. So just taking on these small, simple little tactics and skills and strategies can really improve your onboarding process. Before we get out of this interview, I did want to talk about your book. You are having another book signing coming up, correct?
That's correct. Weller Bookstore, Trolley Square in Salt Lake City, April 16th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. I'll do a reading and then answer questions and do a book signing.
Perfect opportunity to come talk to you in person, and if there's any questions anyone has about this whole process or any questions from the book that they have, they can come to you with that exactly. And they can also find you online at recruiterguy.com, correct?
Recruiterguy.com and LinkedIn as Recruiter Guy and at RecruiterGuy81 on Twitter.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bill. As always, appreciate all the great tips and strategies that you give us for the whole onboarding process as well as interviewing today. This is a really great interview. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Diego.
Absolutely. We're going to continue here on the Mountain Morning Show. When we come back, Terry will be joined by Habitat for Humanity. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.